Hi, Forrest.
Hey.
Happy Wednesday.
Hi, Seamus. Happy Wednesday.
How are you?
I'm really fired up. I'm really good. Coming right
Yeah.
off of May the 4th. May the 4th be with you.
Sweet. What are we
It-
talking about today?
we're talking about modern mythologies, because obviously that's on my mind right now. I've been kind of saturated for the last few days. I've been thinking a lot about how mythology is that beautiful nexus between literature and spirituality, and where the stories that we tell and the meaningful stories, the stories that last for many generations, there's Michael, um, are the ones that seem to be both reflections of where the culture is in the time of the writing of that mythology, but also it takes on a spiritual element because it propels us, as you were saying earlier, Seamus, to change and evolve and strive and become whatever is the next evolution of our best selves. And um, synchronicity is amazing. I have had amazing conversations just in the past week with a whole bunch of people who are currently experiencing a lot of struggle with parenting and education and trying to get their kids invested in literature, interested in reading, picking up the darn book that they were assigned for whatever class. And in the age of COVID, we're seeing that boredom and that disconnect firsthand, because a lot of it is happening right at home. It's not, how was your day, dear? Oh, it's fine. You actually are watching this student struggling to have any interest at all in what they're being assigned to read, which is what keeps inspiring me to bring up the idea of the contemporary myth, the modern myth, the hero's journey as retold not necessarily in Gilgamesh or even in the Greek and Roman mythologies that are still alive and still resonant and still considered classics, and for many of us just in our magical practice and in our mundane lives, those mythologies come up. But what if we weren't limited to the ancient works and the ancient sacred texts? What if mythologies could enter into the modern world and we could really take some of the more contemporary stories more seriously? At the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum in the late 90s, early 2000s, I believe, there was a beautiful exhibit where a lot of the Star Wars props, costumes, and designs were on display alongside Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. And that whole Smithsonian exhibition was about the contemporary mythology and how Star Wars was relevant in the same way that those ancient mythologies and the ancient hero's journey stories are relevant. So whether it was written 4,000 years ago during the Alexandrian period, or it was written in the 30s with Lord of the Rings, or it was written 2 years ago with The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, these stories can actually be a source of not only personal meaning and cultural reflection, but I think for a magical person, a really rich font of energy and divinity. So if you reach through the image of, say, a Sam Wilson as the Falcon, I'm not going to tell you the spoiler, and it's on the tip of my tongue, but I'm not going to do it, and see that evolution and that transformation and that cracking open of the egg of potential, him reaching his next degree of I am. That's a spiritual story and wildly powerful allegory for what's going on for us culturally. So culturally contextual. Whoa, that totally almost fell. Hello. Um, I would argue that you can take a piece of literature, I'll call it literature, from 2021 and experience it with as much resonance and personal connection and empowerment potential as an ancient mythology that we consider to be a sacred text. So look for the sacred in contemporary text, in supposedly mundane mythologies, and especially if you've got the background of reading Carl Jung's Modern Man in Search of a Soul, I think that's the name of the book, or Synchronicity, or really any Jungian texts that talk about how we look at stories in relation to self. Those are really good hooks for your magical practice and for spiritual development, and just really, really cool reading, especially if you're a little nerdy. All right, happy Wednesday. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next week.